Leonardo da Vinci, 1452 through 1519. Chapter 1. The Birth of a Genius, 1452 to 1466. On a quiet morning in the rolling hills of Tuscany, a child was born in the small town of Vinci. The air smelled of earth and olive groves, the sun spilling gold across the stone houses and narrow streets. It was April 15th, 1452, and in a modest home, a son came into the world who would one day become the symbol of human genius. Leonardo, the illegitimate child of a notary named Piero da Vinci and a peasant woman named Caterina, entered a world where lineage and privilege dictated destiny. Yet, in his tiny, delicate hands and restless eyes, there already burned a curiosity that could not be confined by circumstance. From an early age, Leonardo wandered through vineyards, forests, and hills, observing the flight of birds, the flow of rivers, and the intricate patterns of nature. He was fascinated by motion and light, by how shadows shifted, by how leaves unfolded. He sketched with sticks in the dirt, capturing what he saw in a way that seemed impossible for a child of his years. Even his earliest play was imbued with the mind of an inventor, an artist, a philosopher, a boy quietly absorbing the secrets of the world. His father, a man accustomed to order and precision, recognized Leonardo's unusual intelligence and allowed him freedom to explore, though society had little understanding of such talent. The boy's mother, living apart, provided the warmth and imagination that complemented the young Leonardo's relentless curiosity. From these dual influences, a rigorous household and the fertile fields of Vinci, Leonardo's mind began to take shape, forging patterns of observation that would later underpin his art, science, and inventions. By the age of 7, Leonardo was already demonstrating skills that astounded the villagers. He dissected frogs, attempting to understand the mechanics of life. He observed birds in flight for hours, sketching their wings in painstaking detail, trying to unlock the mystery of soaring. His sketches were crude but accurate, precise yet alive, each line a testament to his insatiable desire to understand the natural world. Yet life was not simple for a boy born outside the bounds of legitimate inheritance. Leonardo faced both prejudice and expectation, navigating a society that valued status over curiosity. It was in these struggles that the foundations of his resilience were laid, teaching him patience, observation, and ingenuity. He learned to see opportunity in limitation, to transform obstacles into inspiration. Each day, each sketch, each experiment became a step toward the man who would later astonish kings and emperors, who would challenge the very boundaries of human knowledge. Even as a boy, Leonardo's mind reached beyond the confines of Vinci. He imagined flying machines, mechanical contraptions, and ways to bend nature to human understanding. He watched rivers and waterfalls, studying the flow of water, and dreamed of capturing its power in mechanisms that did not yet exist. The local villagers saw a curious, bright-eyed boy, but in Leonardo's imagination, he was already navigating worlds unseen, charting territories of thought that would one day change the course of history. By the time Leonardo approached adolescence, his talent could no longer be contained within the small confines of Vinci. Word of his drawings, his inventions, and his astonishing observational skills began to spread. He sketched animals, plants, and human figures with a precision that drew comparisons to masters much older than he. It was clear that this child, born under simple circumstances, carried the seeds of genius within him, a genius that would later touch art, science, anatomy, engineering, and philosophy. In the quiet of his early life, among olive trees and vineyards, the foundations of a mind capable of transcending centuries were laid. Leonardo's birth was not merely the arrival of a child, it was the emergence of a force that would illuminate the world. The boy who wandered the hills of Tuscany, sketching birds in flight and studying the flow of water, was destined to become a man whose name would echo through the ages, whose vision would redefine the very meaning of genius, and whose legacy would endure long after his own mortal life had ended. Chapter 2. The Apprentice in Florence, 1466 to 1476. By the time Leonardo turned 14, the quiet hills of Vinci could no longer contain his restless mind. Word of his talent had reached Florence, the glittering heart of the Renaissance, where art, intellect, and ambition collided in streets lined with marble palaces, bustling workshops, and open-air markets filled with the scents of spices and paint. It was here, amid the brilliance of Florence, that Leonardo took the first decisive step toward immortality. He became an apprentice in the workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio, the city's most renowned master. From the moment he entered the workshop, Leonardo's curiosity and intelligence set him apart. While other apprentices labored in silence, perfecting brushstrokes or carving marble under rigid instruction, Leonardo observed with unrelenting intensity. He dissected tools, studied human anatomy, experimented with pigments, and sketched constantly, his notebooks overflowing with ideas, observations, and inventions. Every stroke of his brush, every mark on paper, was guided not only by skill, but by a profound desire to understand the essence of the world around him. Under Verrocchio's guidance, Leonardo learned the discipline of the craft, the structure of perspective, the nuances of shading, the delicate balance between light and shadow. Yet he did not merely copy the master, he innovated. He would blend paint and charcoal in ways that had never been seen, create sculptures with an astonishing realism, and compose studies of movement so precise they seemed to breathe. Verrocchio himself recognized the boy's extraordinary talent, noting that one day Leonardo would surpass all masters of their time. The streets of Florence became both a classroom and a canvas. Leonardo wandered the marketplaces, observing merchants, animals, and townsfolk, capturing their gestures, expressions, and postures with meticulous attention. He sketched animals mid-leap, drapery in motion, and faces etched with emotion, practicing the art of observation that would later make his portraits legendary. His studies were more than art. They were investigations into the mechanics of life, a merging of science and creativity that would define the Renaissance spirit. Even as he honed his artistic skills, Leonardo's mind wandered to the extraordinary. He sketched designs for flying machines inspired by birds, studied the flow of water in fountains and canals, and designed intricate contraptions that blurred the line between imagination and reality. In Verrocchio's workshop, Leonardo's notebooks overflowed with diagrams of gears, pulleys, and mechanisms, each one a testament to a mind that sought to unlock the secrets of nature itself. Yet Florence was not without its shadows. The city, vibrant and alive, was also a crucible of competition and ambition. Rivalries between artists, the pressures of patrons, and the rigid expectations of society tested Leonardo's resolve. He learned to navigate politics, patronage, and the complex web of influence that governed the city's elite. Even as he absorbed these lessons, he remained fiercely independent, a thinker whose vision extended far beyond the commissions and constraints of his time. During these formative years, Leonardo also began to cultivate the habits that would define his genius: insatiable curiosity, meticulous observation, and relentless experimentation. He would rise before dawn to sketch the sunrise, study the behavior of animals, or examine the mechanics of water flowing through aqueducts. He questioned everything from the structure of the human body to the trajectory of birds in flight, recording his insights in notebooks that would one day become treasures of knowledge. By the end of his apprenticeship, Leonardo was no longer merely a gifted student. He was a prodigy on the cusp of greatness. Florence had shaped him, provided him the tools and knowledge, but it had not confined him. He was ready to step into the wider world, to take his place among patrons, princes, and the great artists of Italy. His journey had only just begun, but the foundations of his genius, art, science, invention, and observation were firmly in place, and the world was about to witness the rise of a man whose mind would forever change the course of history.
Chapter 3. Secrets of the Studio, 1476 to 1482. Florence in the late 1470s pulsed with energy, a city alive with ambition, commerce, and art. The streets echoed with the clatter of horse-drawn carts, the chatter of merchants, and the rhythmic tapping of chisels in sculptors' workshops. Amid this whirlwind, Leonardo da Vinci began to establish himself not merely as a student, but as a force whose talent could command attention, curiosity, and eventually the patronage of the powerful. Within Verrocchio's studio, Leonardo's presence became increasingly magnetic. Other apprentices watched in awe and envy as he experimented with pigments, perfected the human form in sketches, and innovated techniques that even his master could scarcely anticipate. He dissected cadavers in secret, unraveling the intricacies of muscles, tendons, and the human skeleton with the precision of a scientist and the eye of an artist. These studies were not casual observations. They were meticulous investigations into life itself, the kind of work that would later allow him to render anatomy with breathtaking realism. Yet Leonardo was restless. The city outside the studio offered endless stimuli: processions through piazzas, craftsmen at work, scholars debating philosophy and mathematics. He absorbed it all, blending observation with imagination. Birds in flight became lessons in mechanics. Flowing water taught him about energy and motion. The expressions of merchants and beggars alike were recorded in countless sketches, each line a meditation on humanity. Leonardo's notebooks overflowed with diagrams, equations, and illustrations that blurred the boundary between art and science, a testament to a mind that refused to be confined to a single discipline. It was during these years that Leonardo began receiving small commissions, modest altarpieces, portraits, and decorative works. Yet even in these early projects, his genius shone unmistakably. He would manipulate light and shadow, explore perspective with startling subtlety, and breathe life into figures that seemed poised to step out of their frames. Patrons began to notice not only his skill, but the originality and intelligence that infused every work. To them, Leonardo was not merely a craftsman. He was a visionary, capable of capturing both the physical and the spiritual essence of his subjects.
Despite growing recognition, Leonardo remained fiercely independent. He eschewed repetition, refusing to produce work that did not challenge him intellectually or creatively. His days were consumed by inquiry, studying the flight of birds, dissecting plants, experimenting with mechanical devices, and sketching intricate inventions that often defied the imagination. He imagined helicopters centuries before their invention, designed war machines, and explored the principles of hydraulics, all while painting with a sensitivity and precision that seemed otherworldly. In this period, Leonardo's personality began to crystallize, a blend of curiosity, observation, and relentless questioning. He was often enigmatic to those around him, more interested in the pursuit of knowledge than in social niceties or conventional accolades. Yet, he inspired loyalty and admiration from his peers. Even Verrocchio, who had once dominated the studio, seemed to sense that his apprentice was destined for greatness beyond any master's reach. Florence itself became both muse and laboratory. Leonardo roamed the city and its surrounding hills, sketching landscapes with meticulous attention to detail, recording the behavior of animals and analyzing the mechanics of rivers, wind, and human motion. He was a man who saw patterns where others saw chaos, connections where others saw only randomness, and potential where others saw impossibility. Every brushstroke, every sketch, every invention was a step toward mastery, a preparation for the works that would define the Renaissance and immortalize his name. By 1482, Leonardo was ready to leave Florence for Milan, carrying with him a portfolio of work that demonstrated not only extraordinary skill, but a mind capable of conceiving the impossible. Letters to patrons described his abilities, inventions, and artistic prowess, revealing a man who was as ambitious as he was gifted. He sought not only commissions, but the opportunity to explore, invent, and push boundaries. Florence had nurtured him, shaped him, but it could no longer contain the restless genius that demanded a wider stage. As Leonardo prepared to journey north, he carried with him the secrets of his studio. Notebooks filled with sketches, ideas, and insights, studies of the human body, nature, and machines, and an artistic vision that merged observation with imagination. These were the foundations of a career that would forever alter the landscape of art, science, and human thought. The boy from Vinci had become a man whose mind stretched beyond his time, poised to leave a mark on the world that would endure centuries.
Chapter 4. The Master of Milan, 1482–1499. The streets of Milan shimmered beneath the winter sun as Leonardo da Vinci arrived in 1482, a young man carrying little more than his notebooks, sketches, and a burning ambition. The city, a nexus of trade, culture, and political intrigue, was a kingdom of opportunity, a place where talent could flourish under the gaze of patrons eager for art, innovation, and prestige. Leonardo, with the poise of a man already aware of his genius, sought the favor of Ludovico Sforza, the Duke of Milan, presenting himself not merely as a painter, but as an inventor, engineer, and visionary. In his letter to the Duke, Leonardo spoke of machines that could move armies, bridges that could span rivers, and contraptions that defied imagination. He promised to transform the city, to capture its essence on canvas, and to bring to life ideas that stretched the boundaries of possibility. It was an audacious claim, yet one matched by a talent so extraordinary that Sforza could scarcely resist. Leonardo's presence in Milan marked the beginning of a period where art, science, and invention intertwined, where one single mind could alter the perception of an entire court, and where ambition met opportunity in the most spectacular ways. Leonardo's workshop in Milan became a laboratory of brilliance. He painted, sketched, and designed with relentless energy. Canvases, parchment, and models filled the space, capturing the complexity of anatomy, the elegance of architecture, and the mechanics of motion. The city itself became his inspiration. Bustling streets, ornate palaces, and the tranquil waterways of the Navigli offered lessons in perspective, proportion, and geometry. Each observation was translated into sketches, studies, and ultimately masterpieces that would immortalize his presence in Milan. It was during this period that Leonardo began work on one of the most ambitious commissions of his career, The Last Supper. The refectory of the convent of Santa Maria delle Grazie became a stage for human emotion, divine drama, and artistic ingenuity.
Leonardo experimented with perspective, composition, and innovative painting techniques to capture the precise moment Christ revealed the betrayal to his disciples. The work was more than religious imagery. It was a psychological study, a revelation of humanity's complexity, and a testament to Leonardo's unparalleled ability to merge art with understanding of the mind.
Yet Milan was not only a city of art, it was a city of politics, warfare, and ambition. Leonardo's genius extended beyond painting. He designed elaborate war machines, fortifications, and devices of engineering that were centuries ahead of their time. Canals were rerouted, bridges conceptualized, and mechanical inventions sketched with the precision of an engineer. To the Duke, Leonardo was both artist and military consultant, a polymath whose mind was capable of transforming Milan into a city of innovation and power. In his personal studies, Leonardo continued his relentless exploration of anatomy, nature, and mechanics. He dissected human cadavers in secret, drawing muscles, tendons, and bones with meticulous accuracy. Birds, horses, and other animals were captured in sketches that revealed motion and structure with unprecedented realism. His notebooks swelled with ideas, flying machines, gears, hydraulics, and experiments that merged observation with imagination. Milan became a crucible for his genius, a place where curiosity met patronage, and where the impossible became conceivable. Despite his triumphs, Leonardo's time in Milan was not without challenges. Political upheaval, the shifting fortunes of the Sforza family, and rivalries with other artists created a climate of tension. Yet Leonardo navigated it all with the skill of a strategist, leveraging his talent to secure commissions, favors, and influence. He was both a creator and a thinker, a man whose art extended beyond canvas into the very fabric of the city he served. By the end of the 1490s, Leonardo's reputation had reached legendary proportions. Nobles, scholars, and fellow artists marveled at his skill, his vision, and the breadth of his intellect. Yet even as Milan celebrated his achievements, the world beyond beckoned. Political upheaval, the lure of new patrons, called him away, promising fresh challenges and opportunities. Leonardo, ever restless and insatiably curious, prepared to leave Milan, carrying with him the lessons, triumphs, and ambitions that would shape the next phase of his extraordinary life. In the heart of Milan, Leonardo had become more than an artist. He was a master of perception, invention, and human understanding. His work would endure, inspiring generations, while his restless mind sought new horizons. The city had nurtured him, challenged him, and showcased his genius. And as he stepped beyond its walls, the world was poised to witness a mind whose vision transcended time, bridging the realms of art, science, and imagination like no other in history.
Chapter 5. Portraits and Power, 1495 to 1500. Milan pulsed with life, wealth, and influence, a city where art was currency and every portrait a statement of power. Leonardo da Vinci, now a master in his own right, moved through its palaces and workshops with a confidence that matched his talent. He was no longer simply a painter or inventor. He was a visionary whose brush, mind, and sketches commanded attention, inspired awe, and often intimidated those around him. Each commission was more than an image. It was a negotiation of identity, status, and legacy. It was in this period that Leonardo embarked on his most ambitious and celebrated works in portraiture. The Duke's court, wealthy merchants, and influential families sought his hand to immortalize their faces, their influence, and their power. Yet Leonardo approached each portrait not merely as a likeness, but as a study of the human soul. In every subtle shadow, every curve of a smile, he captured emotion,
intellect, and character, transforming simple depictions into profound explorations of humanity. During these years, Leonardo also began experimenting with techniques that would redefine painting itself. He perfected the sfumato, a method of delicate shading that allowed edges to dissolve into one another, producing a softness that mimicked the way the human eye perceives the world. Flesh, fabric, and landscapes seemed to breathe on his canvases, revealing the minutiae of reality filtered through the genius of observation. Patrons marveled, rivals envied, and the city of Milan buzzed with the presence of a mind that seemed untouchable in its brilliance. While portraiture brought recognition, Leonardo's restless mind pursued broader ambitions. He designed intricate machines, bridges, and weapons for the city, blending artistic beauty with practical engineering. He observed the flight of birds, studied the flow of rivers, and sketched mechanisms that anticipated centuries of technological development. Each invention, each study, was a demonstration of the interconnectedness of art, science, and human curiosity, a philosophy he pursued with unwavering rigor.
It was also during this time that Leonardo began one of the most famous projects of the Renaissance, the Last Supper. Commissioned by Ludovico Sforza for the convent of Santa Maria delle Grazie, the painting was more than a religious scene. It was a profound exploration of psychology, emotion, and human drama. Leonardo captured the precise moment when Christ announced that one of his disciples would betray him, revealing shock, guilt, confusion, and loyalty in each face. Perspective drew the viewer into the scene, making them a participant in the narrative. It was a masterpiece born from meticulous observation, philosophical insight, and artistic daring. Beyond the walls of palaces and convents, Leonardo's studies continued. He dissected cadavers in secret, sketched anatomy with an accuracy previously unseen, and contemplated the mechanics of the human body. He explored proportion, symmetry, and movement, creating diagrams that would inform artists, engineers, and scientists for generations. The mind that painted the world's most enigmatic smiles also pursued the inner workings of life itself, bridging observation and imagination, art and science. Yet even amidst triumph, Leonardo remained a figure of mystery and solitude. He often withdrew from society to sketch, experiment, and reflect. Friends, patrons, and rivals speculated about his intentions and genius, but Leonardo himself was guided by a singular pursuit: understanding. The external world, its people, landscapes, and machines, was a canvas for inquiry, a laboratory for ideas that transcended the moment, that would ripple across centuries. By 1500, Leonardo's influence in Milan was profound. He had mastered not only the art of painting, but the subtle art of observation, invention, and human insight. Portraits captured more than appearances. They revealed souls. Commissions were more than displays of wealth. They were stages for genius. And yet, as Milan faced political upheaval and the shifting fortunes of the Sforza family threatened stability, Leonardo's restless spirit sensed a new chapter approaching. The city that had nurtured his genius had prepared him for even greater challenges beyond its walls, and he would soon journey into new territories, both literal and intellectual, where his ambitions would expand in ways that would redefine the Renaissance. Chapter 6. The Renaissance Polymath, 1500 to 1506. By the turn of the 16th century, Leonardo da Vinci had become a figure whose reputation stretched far beyond Milan. The city had shaped him, but now the world awaited the full breadth of his genius. He traveled across Italy, returning briefly to Florence, wandering through Venice, and exploring the intellectual currents that flowed through Renaissance courts. It was a period of extraordinary productivity and profound discovery, a time when Leonardo's art, science, and inventions coalesced into a vision that transcended ordinary understanding. In Florence, Leonardo's mastery of the human form reached unprecedented heights. His sketches of anatomy, meticulously rendered bones, muscles, and organs, revealed the precision of a scientist and the sensitivity of an artist. He dissected cadavers in secret, careful to document the mechanics of movement and the inner workings of the body. Each page of his notebooks became a map of the human machine, a blueprint that would influence medicine and art for centuries. Leonardo's studies were not just scientific, they were deeply aesthetic, capturing the harmony, proportion, and symmetry that reflected his lifelong fascination with the unity of nature and man. But Leonardo's genius was not confined to anatomy. He immersed himself in engineering, exploring water flow, hydraulics, and mechanics with relentless curiosity. Canals were studied and sketched, bridges designed, and complex machinery conceived that would have astounded his contemporaries. He imagined devices for flight centuries before humans could soar, devised war machines, and sketched vehicles and automata with astonishing foresight. In his mind, art and science were inseparable. Every painting, every invention, every observation was part of a vast tapestry of knowledge, a Renaissance universe rendered in both form and function. During these years, Leonardo also revisited painting with renewed vigor. His work on the Mona Lisa began in Florence, a portrait that would become the most famous in the world. Unlike anything before it, the painting captured not just the outward appearance of the sitter, but the mystery of consciousness, the fleeting ambiguity of expression. The subtle sfumato he perfected blurred the lines between reality and imagination, allowing a smile to emerge, vanish, and transform in the viewer's perception. In the Mona Lisa, Leonardo merged observation, psychology, and artistry into a singular masterpiece, one that would define the future of portraiture.
Leonardo's notebooks from this period reveal a mind perpetually in motion. He sketched flying machines, experimented with optics, recorded the flow of water, and devised plans for architecture and urban planning. Every observation of birds in flight, the curve of a river, the motion of a horse was a spark for invention and artistry alike. His work reflected a profound belief that the natural world and human intellect were intertwined, and that understanding one allowed mastery of the other. Despite his towering intellect, Leonardo remained enigmatic. Patrons, students, and fellow artists admired and sometimes feared him, unsure whether they were in the presence of a man, a genius, or something almost beyond humanity. He traveled lightly, with notebooks in hand, observing, sketching, and experimenting in a constant search for knowledge. His polymathic nature made him both indispensable and untethered, a man whose ambitions could not be confined to a single city, discipline, or project. By 1506, Leonardo's reputation as the ultimate Renaissance polymath had been cemented. He had bridged the worlds of art, science, and invention, creating works that were simultaneously beautiful, intelligent, and revolutionary. Florence and Milan had nurtured him, but Leonardo was now a citizen of the world, a thinker and creator whose influence would ripple far beyond the confines of any city. Every sketch, painting, and invention reflected not only skill, but vision, a vision that sought to illuminate the patterns of the universe, to capture the mechanics of nature, and to reveal the profound potential of the human mind. As the Renaissance blossomed around him, Leonardo da Vinci embodied its highest ideals: curiosity, observation, creativity, and an unrelenting pursuit of knowledge. He was a painter who understood anatomy,
an engineer who envisioned flight, a philosopher who recorded the mechanics of life. The polymath's journey was far from over, but by this time the world had already begun to recognize him as something extraordinary, a man whose genius was as limitless as the human imagination itself.
Chapter 7. The War Machines and the Mind of Flight, 1506 to 1513. The city of Rome and the courts of Italy hummed with ambition, power, and the restless energy of a Renaissance in full bloom. Leonardo da Vinci, now a master whose reputation preceded him, wandered between these centers of influence, carrying notebooks brimming with sketches, diagrams, and ideas that stretched the limits of imagination. He had conquered the realms of painting and anatomy, but his mind now sought new challenges, the mechanics of war and the dream of flight. Under the patronage of powerful rulers, Leonardo designed machines of astounding ingenuity. Siege engines capable of battering walls, armored vehicles that seemed to anticipate modern tanks, catapults and cranes, all emerged from his workshop in intricate detail. He studied motion, leverage, and force with a precision that combined the intuition of an artist and the calculation of an engineer. Each machine was a marriage of creativity and practicality, conceived to protect, to conquer, and to defy expectation. But it was the sky that captured Leonardo's imagination most completely. He watched birds in silent fascination, noting the curves of their wings, the angles of their feathers, the mechanics of their flight. These observations were translated into sketches of gliders, ornithopters, and flying machines that seemed to hover between fantasy and possibility. Leonardo's designs were visionary. Some would not be realized for centuries, but they reflected a mind that could see beyond the horizon, that could imagine human ambition breaking free from the limitations of gravity.
During this period, Leonardo's artistry continued to flourish alongside his inventions. He worked on commissions in Florence and beyond, painting portraits that captured subtle emotion and religious scenes imbued with drama and perspective. His fame as a painter intertwined seamlessly with his reputation as a thinker and inventor. Patrons marveled at his versatility, a single man who could render the human soul with exquisite sensitivity, devise machines capable of altering warfare, and sketch visions of flight that seemed to touch the heavens. Yet Leonardo's genius was often solitary. In dimly lit workshops and quiet libraries, he meticulously refined his designs, recording every observation, every calculation, every idea in his voluminous notebooks. He sketched hydraulics, bridges, gears, and mechanisms with the same care he applied to the delicate shading of a human face. He dissected animals, studied water flow, and experimented with optics, convinced that all knowledge was connected and that mastery of one domain illuminated the others. The world around him, however, was not always receptive. Political intrigue, shifting alliances, and the uncertainties of patronage forced Leonardo to navigate carefully. His projects, grand and innovative, were often impractical, ahead of their time, or too expensive to realize. Yet this did not diminish his ambition. If anything, these challenges fueled his relentless pursuit of understanding, and he continued to produce sketches, models, and designs that remain astonishing even by modern standards. By 1513, Leonardo had reached the zenith of his experimentation with mechanics and flight. His sketches of flying machines revealed an unparalleled understanding of aerodynamics, his designs of war engines a grasp of engineering principles centuries ahead of contemporary knowledge. Yet even as he pondered the heavens and the mechanics of war, Leonardo's heart remained tethered to the human form, to art, and to the observation of life itself. He sought to capture both the outer world and the inner spirit, blending invention, art, and science into a unified vision of human possibility. In these years, Leonardo embodied the Renaissance ideal more fully than perhaps any other figure,
a polymath whose mind bridged the practical and the visionary, the tangible and the theoretical, the earthly and the celestial. He was a man who studied birds to teach humans to fly, who dissected bodies to paint the soul, who imagined machines to reshape battlefields, yet dedicated equal effort to capturing the fleeting expressions of a human face. As the decade drew to a close, Leonardo's notebooks were overflowing, his influence spreading through courts and workshops, his fame growing among rulers, scholars, and fellow artists. The world was beginning to recognize the magnitude of his genius, but Leonardo himself remained restless, ever curious, ever seeking, always imagining the next horizon, whether in the movement of gears, the flight of a bird, or the secrets of the human mind.
Chapter 8. Rome and the Eternal City, 1513 to 1516. Rome, the Eternal City, rose like a jewel of marble and stone, a convergence of history, ambition, and divinity. By 1513, Leonardo da Vinci, now in his early 60s, had traveled to this heart of the Renaissance, a city teeming with art, scholars, and patrons whose ambitions rivaled their wealth. Here, amid the grandeur of palaces, churches, and piazzas, Leonardo sought new horizons, not merely to create, but to observe, study, and synthesize the wisdom of centuries. The city itself became a living classroom. Leonardo wandered through the bustling streets, studying architecture, the flow of crowds, and the behavior of people in public spaces. He sketched fountains, bridges, and the twisting streets with meticulous care, recording perspectives, measurements, and ideas that could be applied to both engineering and art. Every alley, piazza, and temple was a laboratory for his boundless curiosity. Even in Rome, Leonardo's artistic reputation preceded him. He was sought after for his skill in painting, sculpture, and design, though the demands of patrons often conflicted with his perfectionism and restless intellect. While commissions were offered, Leonardo increasingly devoted himself to exploration, scientific, anatomical, and philosophical. He dissected human cadavers to deepen his understanding of form and motion, studied plants and animals with meticulous attention, and drafted engineering designs that anticipated centuries of technological progress. Rome's intellectual climate was intoxicating. Scholars debated philosophy, artists experimented with techniques, and architects pushed the boundaries of design. Leonardo immersed himself in these currents, exchanging ideas with mathematicians, engineers, and thinkers who shared his fascination with the natural world and the mechanics of human invention. He explored optics, mechanics, and hydraulics, refining designs for canals, machines, and devices that combined function with elegance.
During this period, Leonardo also reflected on his life and legacy. His notebooks reveal a man who is both deeply aware of his mortality and profoundly committed to understanding the world in its entirety. He sketched spirals, geometric forms, and studies of water and motion, demonstrating a mind perpetually probing the principles of nature. Even as his body aged, his imagination remained boundless, capable of leaping from the smallest details of anatomy to the grandeur of flight and engineering. Rome, however, was not without challenges. Political turbulence and the ambitions of powerful families sometimes constrained Leonardo's projects, forcing him to navigate the delicate balance between patronage and independence. Yet these obstacles did not dampen his creativity. Instead, they seemed to sharpen his resolve to pursue knowledge wherever opportunity allowed. He remained a figure both revered and enigmatic, admired by patrons and scholars, yet known for his elusive, solitary tendencies. In the Eternal City, Leonardo's genius continued to bridge art and science. He explored the mechanics of human expression, sketched anatomical studies that captured the intricacies of muscles and bone, and designed complex machines that melded ingenuity with imagination.
His life in Rome exemplified the full scope of the Renaissance polymath, a thinker, inventor, artist, and observer, forever seeking to understand the harmony between man, nature, and the universe. By 1516, Leonardo had left an indelible mark on Rome. His influence was felt not only through his sketches and designs, but through the inspiration he imparted to a generation of artists, engineers, and thinkers. Yet as his reputation flourished, another chapter awaited him, one that would take him beyond Italy to the court of France, where his genius would illuminate a new world and secure his legacy in the annals of history. Leonardo da Vinci, walking the streets of Rome, reflected a mind that had mastered centuries of knowledge, yet remained insatiably curious, a man whose vision spanned the human and natural worlds alike. The eternal city had become a crucible for his intellect, a stage upon which his genius could flourish, and a canvas upon which he sketched not only images, but the very architecture of imagination itself.
Chapter 9. The French Court and the Final Years, 1516 to 1519. The journey from the Italian Renaissance to the court of France marked a new chapter in Leonardo da Vinci's extraordinary life. In 1516, at the age of 64, Leonardo accepted an invitation from King Francis I, a ruler whose ambition and reverence for genius matched that of the Renaissance itself. Crossing the Alps, Leonardo arrived in Amboise, where the Loire River wound like a silver ribbon through the verdant French countryside. Here, in the serene landscapes of the French court, Leonardo would spend the final years of his life, surrounded by patrons who recognized not only his artistic mastery, but the boundless scope of his intellect. At the Château du Clos-Lucé, a manor connected to the royal palace, Leonardo transformed his residence into a laboratory, studio, and sanctuary. The walls echoed with sketches, blueprints, and models, where art and invention converged in perfect harmony. Machines for flight, studies of hydraulics, and architectural designs lined the tables, alongside paints, brushes, and canvases awaiting the touch of a master. Leonardo's days were filled with experimentation, observation, and reflection, a continuation of the relentless curiosity that had driven him for decades. The French court was enchanted by Leonardo's presence. King Francis I, a patron who understood the value of genius, sought his counsel on art, architecture, and even engineering. Yet Leonardo remained a man apart, deeply contemplative, moving through the palace with quiet authority and measured purpose. To the courtiers, he was both magician and scholar, a man whose vision extended beyond the tangible, whose mind spanned the arts, sciences, and the mechanics of the universe. During these years, Leonardo focused on both creation and legacy. He continued work on his iconic paintings, though many remained unfinished, reflecting his perfectionism and unceasing pursuit of understanding. In his notebooks, he documented everything: anatomy, flight, water systems, weaponry, and philosophical musings on nature and humanity. These pages, filled with mirror script and intricate diagrams, revealed a mind that saw patterns where others saw chaos, a mind that believed knowledge was an endless pursuit, ever expanding and never complete.
Though Leonardo's body aged, his mind remained undimmed. He dissected, sketched, and invented with the precision and intensity of youth. His fascination with flight led to increasingly elaborate designs for gliders and ornithopters, while his studies of water and hydraulics reflected a profound understanding of physics centuries ahead of his time. Leonardo's art continued to merge observation with imagination, capturing the subtleties of human expression, the flow of drapery, and the interaction of light and shadow with a skill that remained unmatched. Yet even amid the serenity of the Loire Valley, mortality whispered. Leonardo's health declined, his body betraying the restless energy that had carried him across Italy and beyond. Friends, pupils, and patrons gathered around him, seeking guidance, inspiration, and wisdom.
To them, Leonardo was a living bridge between the Renaissance and the promise of the future. A genius whose mind contained centuries of knowledge, yet who remained profoundly human in curiosity, humor, and sensitivity. In May of 1519, Leonardo da Vinci passed away at the Château du Clos-Lucé, in the arms of King Francis I, according to legend, though history preserves the moment with a gentle ambiguity. His death marked the end of an era, but the beginning of a legacy that would span centuries. Paintings like the Mona Lisa and The Last Supper, sketches of anatomy and flight, and inventions conceived long before their time became enduring testaments to the limitless capacity of the human mind. Leonardo's final years in France were not simply the closing chapters of a life. They were the culmination of a journey defined by insatiable curiosity, relentless experimentation, and the fusion of art, science, and philosophy. He had transcended the ordinary, leaving behind not only works of beauty, but a framework for understanding the natural world, the human body, and the possibilities of invention. In his passing, the world gained more than a master painter or ingenious inventor. It inherited a vision, a model of genius whose influence continues to illuminate every corner of human creativity.
Chapter 10. The Immortal Legacy, 1519 and Beyond. The death of Leonardo da Vinci in 1519 did not mark the end of his influence. It was only the beginning of a legacy that would echo through the centuries. From the quiet Loire Valley in France to the bustling streets of Florence, Venice, and Milan, the works and ideas of Leonardo spread like a silent revolution, shaping art, science, and thought in ways that no single man had ever achieved. His paintings, inventions, sketches, and writings became windows into a mind that had sought to understand everything, from the smallest muscle fiber to the flight of a bird, from the flow of water to the architecture of the heavens. In the centuries that followed, scholars and artists pored over Leonardo's notebooks, rediscovering innovations that were centuries ahead of their time. Engineers studied his machines, realizing that many designs anticipated modern technology. Anatomists learned from his meticulous dissections and drawings, which captured the human body in unparalleled detail. Artists emulated his techniques, from sfumato to the subtle manipulation of perspective, while philosophers marveled at his relentless curiosity and the synthesis of knowledge across disciplines. Leonardo's legacy became a blueprint for genius itself, a model of imagination bound by observation, creativity constrained only by the limits of thought. The Mona Lisa, with her enigmatic smile, became a symbol of human mystery and artistic mastery. The Last Supper redefined narrative painting, transforming religious storytelling into a study of emotion, drama, and psychology. Yet Leonardo's genius was never confined to the canvas. His sketches of flight, engineering, and anatomy demonstrated a mind that did not merely seek to record the world, but to understand and transform it. His legacy was not only in the art he produced, but in the questions he posed, the principles he explored, and the infinite possibilities he imagined.
Through the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, and into the modern era, Leonardo's influence endured. Scientists and inventors found inspiration in his sketches, imagining machines and structures he had only theorized. Artists sought to emulate the depth, realism, and emotion of his work. Historians and philosophers studied his writings, marveling at the unity of his vision, where art, science, and humanity converged. Each generation rediscovered Leonardo anew, finding in his life a model of curiosity, perseverance, and the endless pursuit of knowledge. But perhaps the most profound aspect of Leonardo's legacy is the spirit he embodied. He demonstrated that genius is not the product of circumstance alone, but of relentless curiosity, careful observation, and the courage to imagine beyond the limits of convention. From a child wandering the hills of Vinci to the master of Florence, Milan, and the French court, Leonardo pursued understanding with an intensity that transcended time. His life reminds us that knowledge is not static. It is a living, breathing force that expands with curiosity and creativity. Today, Leonardo da Vinci stands not merely as a historical figure, but as a symbol of human potential. His art continues to captivate, his inventions inspire, and his notebooks challenge us to see the world differently. Across centuries and continents, his genius endures, a beacon of creativity, intellect, and imagination. He left a map of possibility, showing that the human mind, when unleashed, can glimpse the infinite. Leonardo's immortality is not only in what he created, but in the spark he ignites in every mind that encounters his work. He teaches that the pursuit of understanding is limitless, that curiosity is eternal, and that imagination, guided by observation and insight, can reshape the world. The boy from Vinci became the man who transformed the Renaissance, and in doing so became a timeless figure whose legacy will never fade. A reminder that true genius leaves footprints across centuries and continues to inspire the very best in humanity.